The evening sun dipped low over the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the porch as the family returned from work. Inside, a quiet flash of cosmic light swept through the rooms. In an instant, every displayed chair, stray book, and dusted shelf magically snapped back to its rightful place. Outside the window, Star finished her lookout duty and slipped back through the cat door. Upstairs, Amberlou paced back and forth across her room, her brow furrowing in deep thought. "Okay, Star," Amberlou said, stopping to look at her feline companion. "We're telling Mom and Dad to meet our secret roommates, but the important question is, how do we tell them in an uncrazy way?" Star let out a soft, intelligent meow. She tilted her head, indicating that they should pitch the meeting to her parents without dropping the heavy content, omitting any mention of the cosmic travelers, deep space, or even their names. Amberlou stopped pacing, her eyes widening. "You mean we should tell them without saying the words real alien?" Star nodded once, a firm gesture of agreement. Amberlou tapped her chin, the gears turning in her head. "That'll definitely work for sure, but another important question is, how should we tell them without saying the A word?" Star hopped off the bed, padding gracefully over the wooden desk. She climbed onto the surface and tapped her front paw against the glass pane of the window, glancing toward the ceiling to mimic the location. "You mean we could just show them the secret attic?" Star nodded again. "Star, you're an absolute brilliant genius!" Amberlou grinned wildly, palming her fists with newfound confidence. "Now, I can tell this is going to be super easy." Meanwhile, in the dimly lit warmth of the attic, the atmosphere was considerably more rigid. Anno stood with his chest high, posture straight, acting every bit like a military commander addressing a squad. Before him, his four companions stood in an uncharacteristically straight line, though their expressions ranged from highly anxious to completely bewildered. Thanks to hours of studying human television by Bud's favorite, they had just finished a crash course on human-alien relations. "All right, listen up," Etno barked, walking back and forth with his hands clasped behind his back. "We're going to meet the parents, and I expect any of you to act properly toward the human adults." The others looked worried, whispering doubts about whether they could trust the main adult intruders of the house. Anno stopped pacing and pointing a finger in the air. "In order to act unsuspicious with our real identities, we should not act stereotypical about how humans portray us in any form of their fiction." He caught sight of the two-headed alien blinking at him. "And no, I don't mean stereotypical as in you, stereo. What I mean is, we should act very realistically to ourselves and follow the rules of what they see through the screens filled with foul lies, such as, 'We will destroy you.'" "Didn't you say anything about us getting rid of them from before?" Gorgeous grumbled. "That was the point before," Candy squeaked, puffing her cheeks out and turning sharply to Gorgeous. "Correct, Candy," Anno said, adjusting his glasses. He turned a stern eye back to the large blue alien. Our subject has not been changed, gorgeous, because once they learn how to settle with us, we'll settle with them. So, what's the first thing we should do when greeting new friendly citizens? Stereo's left hand shot up into the air. Yes, Stereo? We should obviously greet ourselves more nicely, and by that, we should shake hands. Good, good, yes. Go on, Enno encouraged, nodding. And be polite, Stereo's right head interrupted. Unless, if they're more scared, we shall show them our own proof that we mean no harm, the left head finished. The right head frowned, thoroughly unamused. You know, I was going to catch up on the last one. But I did it for you, my fellow good head. Brilliant, Enno cheered. What else is there? Candy twiddled her dark green braid nervously, shifting from foot to foot. We should simply discuss where we came from and ask permission from the good humans if it would be okay for us to stay. Just not too long. That is the point, Candy, but what else do you suppose of other things? Things, you mean? Like suggestions? Why didn't you say so? Etno immediately face-palmed into his own open palm. Embarrassed by the breakdown in communication, he pinched the bridge of his nose and rubbed his closed eyes beneath his glasses, muttering calculated equations for patience under his breath. Gorgeous raised a heavy hand to speak. You know, I think what we can do is simply dine downstairs instead of having to wait upstairs, because then we wouldn't worry about waiting for too long to starve. Okay, now that you mention it, I suppose we ask them with some amiability, since that is one of our problems that can be solved. Enno turned his gaze to the slender orange alien. And for you, Bud, what do you have in mind? Bud smiled warmly, his bloodshot eyes lighting up with excitement. Maybe, once we show them we're not harmful and evil, maybe we can all get along and have some fun together, like playing games, doing some arts and crafts like we usually do, with painting stones for a prismic Sunday. And wouldn't you know, once we get along, we could all end up being the best of friends, like two peas in a pod. Bud grinned wildly, completely lost in a cheerful daydream of the two families holding hands and laughing together. The rest of the aliens shared a deeply skeptical, slightly weirded-out glance. Stereo's heads, however, exchanged a soft glance. They didn't mind the sentiment, quite liking the idea of finding common ground with the Austrians. Yeah. We could also do that for a while. Thank you very much, Bud, Enno said dryly, clearing his throat to break the silence. But my suggestion is for the better, Bud insisted, chuckling a bit to himself. But hey, good things will come to us sooner or later, right? Right, Enno muttered carefully. He turned back to the entire assembly, lifting his chin. All right, with all those ideas we can take from each other, let's meet the parents. All in favor, if you're ready, raise your hands to say aye. With a mixture of hesitation, nerves, and cautious hope painting across their faces, the space goofs slowly raised their hands into the air. Aye! They chorused together. The living room was warm and cozy, smelling faintly of roasted coffee beans. On the sofa, Jasper and Gladius sat side by side with mugs in their hands, completely absorbed in the television. A classic movie channel was airing Carousel, one of their absolute favorite vintage romance films. Sneaking down the stairs, Amber Lou pressed a finger to her lips. Okay, Star, don't make a huge disturbance. The cat crept silently beside her until they reached the living room rug. Amber Lou cleared her throat nervously. Hey, Mom? Dad? What is it, sweetie? Gladius asked, her eyes never leaving the screen. We were watching one of our favorite movies, if you and Star would like to join, Jasper added smoothly. We want to ask you something, if you don't mind. But the parents were too distracted by their classic program. Seeing her words bounce right off, Amber made her move. When they still didn't look up, she took a final bold stride, blocking the screen entirely. Lou, you're blocking the TV. We can't see. Please, listen to me, Amber Lou pleaded. I really want to talk to you guys. You must understand. Amber, what are you trying to convince us? Gladys asked, setting her mug down. You see, Mom, we were wondering if you and Dad have noticed a string near the hall. The parents looked at each other, thoroughly bewildered, before turning back to their daughter. What string? About that. Have any of you checked out if we had a new attic? Dumbfounded, Jasper and Gladius admitted they hadn't checked the part of the house in ages. Seizing the moment, Amber Lou marched them out of the hallway. With a firm tug of the hidden handle, she released the latch. A wooden ladder popped out beneath the door, clattering down the floorboards. With a click of her flashlight, Amber Lou and Star led the way. The family stepped into the expansive room. Jasper and Gladius gasped. They had never experienced a hidden space like this before. The flashlight beam swept over the ancient trunks, dusty support beams, and cool, forgotten relics, filling the parents with astonishment. I never knew we had a new attic like this, Jasper muttered, looking around. But as they continued their little tour, the atmosphere shifted. Deep within the hidden shadows, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed. The parents froze, startled by the strange noises right behind them. Amber Lou and Star knew immediately that the Goofs were out there, though they couldn't tell if the aliens were scared or excited. Amber Lou swung her flashlight beam toward a massive, bizarre machine they had never encountered before. Star crawled over to check the strange electric chair, while the humans gasped in surprise at the secret invention. No way! Amber Lou whispered in awe. Suddenly, towering silhouettes loomed from behind. Unnoticed by the parents, 5 massive shadows stretched across the floor, slowly closing the distance. Star was the first to notice. Catching sight of the gargantuan shapes, the cat let out a sharp, alarmed yowl. Amber Lou whipped around, shining her flashlight directly in the darkness. The bright beam illuminated 5 incredibly realistic, bizarre monsters standing right in front of them. For a split second, Jasper and Gladius shielded their eyes from the glare, blinking hard. They assumed this must be incredibly detailed, lifelike figurines, But as their eyes suggest, the creatures blinked back. They breathed. They shifted their weight. It was entirely too real. Rather than letting out a scream, the sheer shock overloaded the parents' senses. In unison, Gladius and Jasper dropped dead faint, collapsing heavily onto the floor. "Oh no!" Amberlou cried, her heart dropping, realizing they had made a terrible mistake. An hour later, the living room couch was crowded. With the gentle, nervous help of the space goofs, the family carried the unconscious parents downstairs and laid them out to rest. Slowly, Jasper and Gladius began to stir. Their eyelids fluttered open, instantly finding the worried faces of Amberlou and Star. But as the blurry fog faded from their vision, the world snapped into sharp focus. Sitting right there in the living room were the monsters. Gladius let out a sharp gasp. Jasper threw his arms around his wife, wrapping her in a protective embrace while glaring at the creatures in terror. The sudden movement startled the aliens, who took a collective step back. "Mom? Dad? This is monsters!" Jasper and Gladius screamed at the top of their lungs. The sheer volume fumed right through the room, scaring the aliens and rattling Amberlou. Instantly scrambling off the couch, the parents backed themselves against the wall, trying to get as far away from the colorful creatures as possible. "No! Wait!" Amberlou yelled. Gladius lunged forward, grabbing her daughter's arm and pulling the girl tightly to her side. "Jasper, get the phone!" she panicked. "No, Mom! Stop!" Amberlou protested. "Star! Stop Dad!" Recognizing a major roommate emergency, Star growled and sprang into action. Just as Jasper snatched the telephone receiver, the cat jumped up and clamped her teeth firmly around the cord. "Star, give the phone to me," Jasper commanded, pulling. The cat growled, digging her paws into the floor and refusing to let go. "What? Star, please give it back! It's not a toy!" In a desperate bit of justice, Jasper tugged harder, but the feline's grip was ironclad. Star threw her weight backward, pulling the wire taut until... snap! The cord severed completely. Horrified that their pet had destroyed the landline, Gladys tightened her grip on her daughter. Knowing that she needed to break free, Amberlou didn't hesitate. She gathered a mouthful of saliva, stuck her finger into her mouth, and shoved it right into her mother's ear. Gladius shrieked, receiving an ultimate wet willy. Disgusted and startled, she accidentally pushed Amberlou away to wipe her ear. Free at last, Amberlou raced across the room toward the space goof's side. She bumped right into Etno, accidentally hugging him in a rush, while Star bolted under Candy's skirt, hiding safely behind her dark green legs. The aliens watched the chaotic display in absolute astonishment. Etno gently patted the girl's shoulder, letting her go as she turned to face her parents. Jasper and Gladius stood frozen, completely confused as to why their daughter and cat was chosen to stand with the colorful beasts instead of them. "Mom? Dad?" Amberlou said, her voice steadying. "I know what this looks like, but this is not what you truly think." "Lou? What is this?" Jasper demanded. "Who are these creatures?" Amberlou looked at her new friends, then stood tall, looking her parents dead in the eye. These are our secret roommates, the aliens. The parents gasped in unison. For years, they had tolerated their daughter's wild imagination and deep obsession with outer space. But they had never expected to meet a real alien right in their own home. Monsters did exist, and they were currently standing on the carpet. Amber Lou frantically wove her fingers in a subtle, low-down gesture toward Etno, whispering through her teeth. Say something! We come in peace, Etno announced in his refined English accent. Hearing a purple alien speak perfect English completely disarmed the room. Though visibly shaken by the bizarre appearance of the 5 house guests, the sheer politeness of greeting caused Jasper and Gladius to take a slow, calming breath. Across the room, Amber Lou let out a sigh of relief, offering her parents a tight, hopeful, and thoroughly worried smile. After getting their bearings together, Amber Lou brought glasses of water to her parents and her new friends. She walked over to the kitchen table, gently sliding a cup to their parents before turning to hand the remaining glasses to her friends. Nearby, Star sat on a chair, paying no mind to the tension as she calmly licked one of her front paws. So, Gladius started, her voice still trembling slightly. You're aliens who aren't here to abduct us? Why would we? Stereo's right head scoffed. We're not like how you portray that in fiction. Yes, we're definitely not what you imagine us to be, Enno added smoothly, adjusting his glasses. At least, in some versions anyway. Jasper leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. Okay, but do you explain yourselves in a way? Why do you aliens come into our house? We actually came here first before you humans did, Candy piped up, adjusting her apron. Excuse me? Long story short, Amberlou jumped in quickly to prevent an argument. They technically didn't know who owned this house, so they came along assuring it was empty because we weren't living here, and now they're our roommates, living way up beneath the stairs we all know. Gladius rubbed her temples. So wait, how long have you been staying here? We've been around here for a week, Edno calculated. 2 days before you came here. We're sorry we've been hunting you guys lately, Bud said, with a sheepish, apologetic grin. We're the ones that ate your food. The truth finally clicked. Jasper and Gladius froze. The mystery of the missing leftovers instantly solved. This explained perfectly why there wasn't a single bite of flaming longs left in the fridge. Last night's heated discussion flashed through their minds. The one where they had firmly questioned their daughter about why she was lying or where she hidden the Chinese food. The parents slowly turned their gaze toward Amber Lou, glaring in dubitative realization. Amber Lou shrunk back slightly, offering a guilty smile. I didn't want to spoil the surprise, since we've been delivering food for them the entire time. What exactly did you do with the extras after you fed them? Jasper asked. Oh, we threw them out if you'd like to have proof, Gorgeous boomed proudly. Do you even have your own trash can? Before Gladius could finish, Gorgeous snapped his fingers. With a bright flash, the discarded, crumbled containers of Chinese dinner materialized directly in the center of the kitchen table. The sudden appearance of greasy leftovers and crumpled napkins sent a wave of revulsion through the room. Jasper and Gladius immediately gagged, shielding their noses. Amber Lou and Star recoiled in shared disgust, and even Candy is absolutely shocked, her pupils shrinking like those of a cat. Gorgeous! Put those away immediately! You can't bring trash over to our roommate's table! It's very rude! Fine, fine. I was just showing them where the food's at. No need to get hasty, Gorgeous grumbled. He focused his mind powers, making the garbage teleport back to the trash bin where it belonged. Watching things pop in and out of thin air freaked the parents out even more, their eyes tracking the empty space on the table where the garbage had just been. We know what this looks like to you, but please forgive us, Edno said, holding a placing hand to smooth things over. We came from a far, far away galaxy across from your part of the universe. We Zinzins came from an underrated planet. Their home is called Zigma, Amberlou proudly clarified, and they're elemental aliens. Really? Gladius breathed. Are there more of you out there beside your planet? Sure! There's more aliens out there than us from where we came from, Bud chimed in cheerfully. Every species has their own planet, just like us. Edno cleared his throat, standing a little straighter to command the room. Allow us to introduce ourselves, in case you're confused about what element we are. My name is Eno Polino, Zinzin of Wind. My name is Candy, Candy Hana Caramella, Zinzin of Nature. Gorgeous Ricardo Klaatu, Zinzin of Stone. Stereo Monoviki, Zinzin of Fire. And I'm Bud Podovich, Zinzin of Water. Gladius blanked, absorbing the heavy breakdown of cosmic biology. Well, that's certainly interesting, Jasper finished for her. Yeah, that's certainly interesting alien lore from you guys, Gladius nodded, trying to match their polite tone. I'm Gladius Ostrin. This is my husband, Jasper Lunal. And this is our cat Star, Jasper added, pointing down. And our daughter, Ambrian Luna. Oh, we've definitely met your kid and your cat before, Bud beamed. It's true. I found them before showing them to you, Amberlou smiled, feeling the ice finally beginning to melt. Beside her, Star let out a soft purr of agreement. I've basically made a deal with them to protect them away from the government, and I was thinking that if I to take them around their new land, maybe you could also help us keep them safe. And then, after our spaceship gets rebooted, we'll be out of here today. In a flash of pure panic, Stereo slapped right over Bud's mouth with his hand. The space goofs held their breath, terrified that mentioning any kind of departure of taking things would make the humans mistake them for untrustworthy abducting monsters. But the damage was done. Wait, Glydia said, her eyes widening. A spaceship, you say? Jasper asked. Bud shook his head aggressively, finally breaking free from Stereo's tight grip and gasping for air. Yeah, we still have our spaceship with us. With their awareness fully raised and the secret completely out of the bag, the aliens realized they had no choice but to confess the rest. Please forgive us more, Anno sighed, adjusting his glasses with a sheepish look. But we simply took our ship from the junkyard and teleported into your garage. A sudden realization washed over the family. The mysterious locked door, the strange hums they had ignored. It all made perfect sense now. Wanting to provide evidence and fully clear the air, Anno slid his chair back and stepped away from the kitchen table. Come, Anno beckoned. We'll show you. Leaving the kitchen, Anno led the way down the narrow corridor toward the heavy deadbolted garage door. Jasper and Gladius followed close behind, their chairs still humming slightly from being pushed back so fast. Arriving at the threshold, Anno paused. He focused his mind powers, and, with a soft click, the lock turned on its own. He pushed the door open and pulled back the dusty plastic curtains. Behind them, resting in the middle of the floor, sat their ship. The parents froze, completely astonished. It was a real-life metallic UFO, gleaming with alien technology right under their own roof. Star's ears perked up in utter surprise, but Amber Lou's face lit up with pure, unadulterated awe. Wow! That looks amazing! Without a second thought, Amber Lou rushed down the wooden steps for a better look. Star bounded right at her heels. It's the most incredible realistic UFO I've ever seen! As the girls began circling around the massive craft, getting dangerously close to the hull, Gladius panicked. Amber! Star! Don't go near it! Why? Because I'm not sure if it's safe. Oh, don't worry. It's safe to go near, Candy reassured her gently, folding her hands over her apron. Jasper stared at the craft, still trying to process the sight. Whoa! A flying saucer in our garage! Who knew, eh? Gorgeous grunted, crossing his blue arms with a smug grin. Our ship is pretty cool to look at, Bud chuckled. Looking at the immense size of the vessel, the parents finally understood what kept their heavy garage doors jammed and locked the entire time. It wasn't a broken track. It was a massive cosmic secret. After showing the Austrians the hidden truth behind the door, the two families migrated back inside the warmth of the house. Jasper pulled the door shut, locking it securely behind him. Now that all the cards were on the table, the aliens were ready to make a formal bargain, just as they had with their daughter and the cat. So, Jasper said, turning around to face the group, all this time, where things kept randomly appearing out of nowhere, the fact that the garage doors were locked, it was because of you? Indeed, Candy nodded. Though, that would explain at least why I made your flower in your pot bloom. Jasper and Gladys glanced over at the window still. The flower Candy had bloomed was already starting to wither. Guess that explains a lot, murmured Gladys. I hope you don't mind if we like to give you this bargain after your daughter, said Etno. What's the deal for us you want to give? Jasper asked, crossing his arms. Well, the deal is, if you want us to get out of your house so we can live in peace and continue your lives, you must guard us away from the humans. Even by means of the highest ranking who control your country, they must never find out where we live. Of course, in case any of us would like to go outside, we'll use our main device, the SMTV, to change our appearances for whenever we go out. But once I've settled a way to fix the ship, we'll teleport it right back to where we landed, take us far into the forest, and fly away. We shall never, ever return back to you, ever. So, you want us to keep you all in company? Jasper asked, calculating the risks. That is, we'll let you stay here for how long until you think it's time? More technical on the level of fewer days, yes, Anna replied. I don't know how we could protect you from the world outside if you're going out alone, Jasper sighed. Gladys leaned close to her husband's ear, lowering her voice into a tense whisper. I don't think we should trust them, hon. Dad, please, Amberlou cut in. Etno mentioned that they have a technical device that can change themselves. Look, I know this is very hard to have non-species with us, but this is all they had left. They've been stranded on Earth ever since they got hit by a meteorite. It's true, Stereo's left head chimed in. We lost our way back, the right head added. We were only supposed to go out on a picnic, Bud sniffled. But then, that stupid meteorite hit us. This is why we landed here, from our world to yours. The raw, honest truth of their justification hit the parents hard. Amberlou had known this story since Sunday, the day she and Star first met them right before she had to go to school. She had asked them where they came from, and their cosmic shipwreck was the real answer. Well, I just don't know how long we should keep them here, Gladius said, because this might be difficult. We won't be that long. We promise, Gorgeous pleaded. No, we're worried about what will happen and how long we'll keep you guys safe if one of the neighbors were to find out. Mom, please, Amberlou begged, her eyes growing wide and sad. Don't you and Dad dare make this hard for them. We'll keep them together. I am sure nothing bad will come between us. We'll just have to give ourselves our hospitality to them. We should be very respectful toward non-humans, no matter if one or more came from a world or not. That is, if we can get along in between bonds. Please, Mom, Dad, please. Jasper and Gladys looked down at their daughter's pleading face, then across the room at the extraterrestrials. Despite their strange appearance and powerful magic, the creatures looked harmless, standing there with anxious, hopeful expressions. Seeking to provide the ultimate piece of leverage, Star padded across the floorboards. To everyone's immense surprise, the cat walked right up to Stereo, letting out a sweet, affectionate purr and rubbing her back against the alien's fluffy legs. Seeing their beloved pet show more love than roommates was the final straw. The parents looked at each other and shared a silent nod. All right, Jasper sighed, a warm smile breaking through his face. We'll allow them to stay for a while. Amberlou gasped. She lunged forward and threw her arms tightly around her father in a massive surprise hug. I knew you guys could do it! Beaming with joy, Amberlou broke the hug and skipped back to the Space Goof's side, the two groups seemingly joining together as they walked out of the kitchen. So, now that you're under our guidance, would you guys like to know about my room, since you explored around here? Amberlou offered excitedly. Bud's eyes lit up. Sure, why not? We really do like your room. Well, come with me and Star. I got a lot of cool stuff you'll definitely want to learn more about. With a bright laugh, Amberlou and Star led the Space Goofs up the stairs, their chatter fading into the upper hall. Below, Jasper and Gladius stood completely speechless in the kitchen, wondering how on earth they were going to get used to these aliens. Amberlou closed the bedroom door with a soft click, sealing the two families into her personal sanctuary. Star immediately leaped onto the colorful bedspread, settling down with her paws tucked under her chest to watch. Okay, so you already know I've collected a bunch of figurines and other few directions about the universe, right? Amberlou asked. Yeah, Gorgeous grunted, looking around at the crowded shelves. Well, since it's important to get along with your roommates, I figured I might want to give out a more proper explanation so you can understand some of the stuff based on the sci-fi stories I kept here. Amberlou walked over to her desk, reaching for a detailed plastic figure and holding it out proudly. See this? This is an action figure. They're basically a kind of doll, usually based on superheroes and supervillains. Like one of my favorites, Sirius Stallfaller from Moon Wars. He's my hero, by the way. He's a Kanjo. Gorgeous squinted his eyes, thoroughly perplexed. What the Pluto's a Kaju? A Kanju is a type of space hero, Amberlou explained with a grin. A space heroine's term is Kanjo Res. It's a fictional term you wouldn't want to know. So, you have your own heroes in your own stories? Gorgeous asked. Yes, we do. Anno stepped closer, adjusting his glasses as he scanned the room. What a fascinating type of collection. Seems like the kind of thing Bud would do. Say what? Bud blinked from the back of the group, completely missing the comparison. Suddenly, Candy spotted a delicate doll resting on the higher shelf. Oh, what's this? She carefully picked it up, her fingers tracing on the fine stitching and glittering fabric of the miniature gown. What an extraordinary piece of work! I do believe I have seen this before, but never in my life I have seen such a pretty dress with all the glitters. That's Princess Iris, daughter of King Uranus and the Seven Moons, Amberlou chimed in. Come again? Her name is Iris, and she's also from Moon Wars, the girl clarified. She's the princess of one of the Moon Kingdoms. Oh, so a Moon Princess, eh? Candy beamed, thoroughly enchanted. Does she have her own knight in shining armor? Yes. Her prince is Sirius the Kanjo. Amberlou turned to the rest of the group. I have some other cool stuff I'd like to show you guys. She reached into the bin and pulled out a rubber green ball, decorated with a bright yellow star and thick stripes. This is my bouncing ball. I used to play catch with it wherever I go when I was very young. Let me guess, Gorgeous answered. What do you do with it? I used to play catch with my parents or kick it, but when I grew up, I fidget with it whenever I'm bored. Even Star's the one who plays it the most. To demonstrate, Amberlou tossed the ball against the floorboards. It bounced up with surprising velocity, ricocheting rapidly from the floor to the ceiling. Then, off the closet door, before zooming straight into Bud's mouth, just as the orange alien let out a massive yawn. The ball lodged perfectly between his teeth. Bud's eyes widened in sheer frozen shock. The room went silent for a beat before Gorgeous burst into loud, mocking giggles. Stereo's left head let out a deep chuckle at the ridiculous sight, while the right winced, feeling bad for their friend. Oops, Amberlou gasped. Bud quickly spat the rubber ball out of his mouth. It sailed through the air and landed directly on the mattress. The sudden movement caught Star's alert eyes, activating her playfulness. She let out a happy meow and began batting the ball across the blankets. Meanwhile, Stereo wandered over to a chest of drawers. Their long fingers pulled out a drawer, revealing a pristine collection of vintage sci-fi comic books. They lifted a stack out, flipping through a glossy cover with deep curiosity. What are these types of literatures? Those are called comics, Amberlou replied. What is a comic? The right-head asked. Stereo handed the top issue back to her. Amberlou opened it up to a random page, pointing to a bright illustration. Comic books. They're usually like books with words on them, either with illustrations or not, but they're different. See? Those illustrations are called panels, and the dialogue in these speech bubbles is the way to read. She slid the comic back in Stereo's hands. Both the twins leaned close, reading through the Space Trek issue in their minds. Their eyes darted across the panels as they flipped the pages. Very interesting. Yes, indeed. We'll have to admit, this is quite an extraordinary discovery from Earth of what you humans can do all the time. Glad you like them, Amberlou smiled. I read them in case whenever I'm bored, if I'm in the mood for some reading. Stereo's right head nudged the left. Do you think we should show them to Bud and Kit? Oh, most definitely sure. The right head glared inward, thoroughly annoyed. You didn't let me finish my sentence. Of course I did. The right head rolled its eyes toward the ceiling. Oh, brother. On the other side of the room, Bud had completely lost interest in the comics. He was busy poking and tapping on the random box resting on the clothes organizer. The box, filled with Amberlou's new clothes her parents had brought from the store, began to wobble under its repeated pokes. With one final clumsy prod, the box tipped over. Bud turned around just a second too late. The box dropped squarely onto his head, completely engulfing his upper body down to his shoulders. "Hey, guys! Where are you?" Bud's muffled voice called out from inside the cardboard. Bud, your head is... My eyes must be blocked off! I can't see a thing! Bud, no! Anno tried to intervene, but Bud was already running in a full panic. He bolted directly toward the closet, flailing his arms. Star, who was still batting the ball, caught sight of the charging cardboard monster and quickly backed up to avoid getting trampled. Bud's footing caught on the edge of the ball, causing him to trip violently. He flipped through the air and crashed flat onto his back, the box flying off his head and landed perfectly against Amberlou's pillow. "Bud, are you okay?" Candy asked, rushing to his side. "Ow! I think so. I have no idea why I was blind. I thought my eyes were gone and missing." Gorgeous snorted from the corner. "It wasn't your eyes. It was your brain, stupid." Star let out a quiet sigh, rolling her eyes at the hilarious disappointment. However, when the cardboard box struck the bed, it shifted the heavy pillow. Etno, standing near to the mattress, noticed the corner of an old photograph sticking out from underneath the fabric. Curious, the purple alien reached his hand out. In a flash, Amberlou's face changed. She charged forward, sweeping the photograph out of her bed and clutching it tightly to her chest. "Don't touch it!" she yelled sharply. The space goofs froze, looking at her in utter confusion. Star trotted over to the edge of the mattress, her ears turning down as she sensed the sudden shift in the room's energy. "You can't look into this photo without my permission." "Why?" "It's a very serious photo. You can't see it unless you ask." Star let out a soft meow in agreement. Amberlou looked down at the image in her hand. It was a photograph of her parents she had taken, an image capturing a happier time, tied deeply to her father's old memories. A wave of profound sadness washed over the girl. Star crawled into her lap, purring softly in an attempt to console her owner. Etno's expression softened, his suffocated demeanor dropping into a genuine remorse. "I'm sorry I alerted you like that." "It's okay," Amberlou murmured, sitting heavily on the edge of her bed. "I'm sorry if I scared you like that. I just didn't want you to look over." "Why? What's wrong?" Candy asked, her voice full of worry. You don't want to know yet." Judging by the heavy slump of her shoulders and the sheer distress on her face, the space goofs wanted to ask her more, but they couldn't help but feel bad for the poor human girl. "I assume you're not healing after the mess at your cafeteria," the left head noted gently. Amberlou sighed, looking down at her knees. "It's more than that. I've just been having a really hard time fitting into this new town. It's not the same place I used to grow up in." Stereo's left head offered a sympathetic smile. "Well, in times like these, once you stay around a little longer, you'll get used to it. And once in a while, once you get used to it, you may think it's not bad living after all," the right head added. "Stereo makes a good point," said Etno. He knows the truth behind facts within intelligence. Besides me, at least, sometimes I'm not thinking straight. We all know how you really feel, Bud said softly. Gorgeous stepped forward, his usual gruff tone turning surprisingly gentle. Believe us. If anything, staying down here on another forbidden planet like this, where your kind could easily find us, is not the right place we wanted to have a picnic. No offense to your home, kid. And the more we are far, far away from home, it is a heartbreaking loss, knowing we may never see our families if we get stuck down here for more than a week or so, Candy added. She turned away, muttering dreadfully to herself. So dreadfully, I don't want to think about what might happen if we fail for the next 100 years. Amberlou looked down at the five of them, feeling a deep wave of empathy. You guys seem very imitated after the strike. Gorgeous instantly flared up, glaring sharply at Candy. If it weren't for the driver, she would have let me easily help her. No, Candy snapped back, her axolotl ears shaking. You pulled the wheel, trying to move us, if you haven't gotten us into this mess. Before she can launch a full tirade, her foot stepped on something soft on the floor, imitating a squeak. Both aliens broke their gaze and looked down. Resting beneath Candy's foot was a plush toy shaped like a long-eared gerbil-like creature. Oh! Candy gasped, her anger instantly evaporating. She scooped up the plushie into her arms, admiring its long ears. Who's this cute little thing? That's Gerbo, Amberlou explained, a faint smile returning to her face. A character from one of the spin-offs. He's another Conjo? Gorgeous asked, tilting his head. No. Orion and the Warriors of Planets is different from Moon Wars. All sci-fi stories have their own world building. Setting her photograph safely face down on the bed, Amberlou slid off the mattress and walked over to another drawer. She pulled out a comic book with a vibrant cosmic color and handed it to Candy. He's from his sister's spin-off. Candy looked at the art, tracing the bold letters of the title. Well, what story is Gerbo from? Like I said, he's from the sister spinoff. Amberlou smiled, happy to share her favorite fictional universe with real cosmic travelers. Later that evening, dinner had arrived. Because the kitchen table was too small for the 5 aliens and humans, Jasper and Gladius had decided to set up a larger table. Gladius carefully dished out the hot meals, placing large, steaming plates in front of the alien guests, before walking over to pour a fresh scoop of kibble in Star's bowl. With an exhausted sigh, Mrs. Austen finally sat down on the side of the table with her husband and daughter. The space goose stared down at the plates in absolute fascination. The meal consisted of towering scoops of fluffy potatoes, crisp green beans, savory meat, and cooked rice. Intrigued by the rich aroma, Anno took a first bite. The savory warmth of Gladius' home cooking instantly put a smile on his face, and the other aliens wasted no time digging. Unfortunately, proper human table manners were entirely absent from the Zinzan's biology. Jasper and Gladys cringed at the chaotic display, picking their food with deep discomfort, though Amberlou giggled and continued eating, completely unbothered. After dinner, the house finally grew quiet as the family prepared for bed. Amberlou and Star had already turned in for the night, tucked safely beneath the blankets. Up in the attic, the faint electric hum of alien technology signaled that the space goofs were staying up long into the night. Jasper gripped the edge of the basin after he brushed his teeth, the weight of the day crushing down on him. He had worked his entire life to build a quiet, safe, and stable existence for his family. He had never, in his wildest dreams, wanted real-life space monsters to crash into reality. Neither did Gladius. The sheer terror of what the local authorities, the government, or even the neighbors would do if they found out was enough to keep them awake for weeks. Gladius looked at her husband's pale face. She stepped closer, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You okay, dear?" Jasper let out a long, heavy sigh, staring blankly at his reflection. "I don't know how to feel about this one, Glads. I built everything I've done for you and our daughter, but having aliens in our own house? I always assumed they were a myth. Turns out it was real." "Things will be okay, Jasper," Gladys counseled him softly. "It's only for a weekend until they get back home. I'm sure of it." "It's not just that," Jasper muttered, his voice dropping to a tense whisper. "Think about the way our daughter has been completely obsessed with space all the time because of us. What if any of our new neighbors were easily to spot them, to find out about real aliens living on Earth? That would only take more than one day sooner or later." A deep, painful doubt settled into both of their hearts. The fear of the Zinzins accidentally exposing their true forms while the parents were away hung heavily in the air. More than anything, they dread the thought of their daughter's innocent space obsession becoming the very thing that drew the world's dangerous eyes right to their front door.